So many places then, boys, where we could start looking back at this game. But I just want overall, just an overview in general for the people who didn't see it.
Yeah.
Like, how would you take them through it?
I would take them through it by a conversation that a lot of people have had around Pep Guardiola, saying, does he try and overcomplicate things when he gets to the real big heavy stuff in the Champions League?
Yep.
And when we saw the lineup and we saw the game start, that's the first thing that came to me. You know, you've got, obviously, Fernandinho's on the bench, Sterling's on the bench, Aguero's on the bench. That was the big call.
Now, this is basically, when you give the starting 11 in, UEFA put it together as they expect it to be. You can pretty much just ignore that graphic, can't you?
Right, so you had Rodri and Gundogan in the middle. You had Bernardo Silva and Kevin De Bruyne as effectively the two strikers. And you had Mahrez on the right and Jesus on the left, who were effectively backing up Walker and Mendy.
Yeah.
So at times it was a 4-6-0 because they had nobody through the middle. And saying that, even Real Madrid, with a natural striker, a lot of times had nobody through the middle because they didn't get people forward. Now, it's the kind of formation, if City had lost the game and it had gone badly, everybody would have sat. Every network worth of salt would have sat and gone through the coach like a dose of salt. Mm-hmm. But it's difficult to do that when they were the better side and they won the game. But it was a strange one.
Why is Gabriel Jesus playing in that position? What does City get out of that?
Well, I suppose that you're saying and you're suggesting that you're going to get more defensive work from him, then he's going to give you energy and activity down that side. To be quite honest with you, I am conflicted because every part of me is thinking, you know what? If they put out their best 11, their best players, their best striker, I'm thinking that Manchester City is so much better, from what we saw today, so much better than Real Madrid, that Manchester City wins this running away. However, I'm sure that people out there will say, but they went to Santiago Bernabeu. They scored 2 goals. They dominated the games. What is there to criticize? I suppose there isn't anything to criticize. But it just felt like Manchester City, and Pep Guardiola for that matter, maybe they got it right. But did they really? It's difficult. It really is difficult to explain when you see Gabriel Jesus playing almost as a wing-back, left-back situation, tracking back the runs of Dani Carvajal. Because when we did see somebody going after Dani Carvajal, which Raheem Sterling did right away when he came off the bench, what did Dani Carvajal do? Well, he took him down for a penalty. When you had players in their actual positions, Manchester City were even better. This was right after Real Madrid had felt like, oh, they had momentum. Manchester City started playing again, started creating opportunities, started creating chances, and they go on and win the game.
There's a sense that this was a job well done, but it could have been a job even better.
Right. Correct.
Because they were lame. And we know they haven't played particularly well of late. They were poor at Levante a few days ago. But Real Madrid were lame. And there's a sense that City were protective to an extent, but had gone for the jugular earlier, could have had 3 or 4, maybe more. Now, the other side of the coin is they might say, well, we might leave Marcel open at the other end. But what I would say is, 1, Real Madrid were there for the taking, and 2, if you think this game's over, a team that can lose at home twice this season to Manchester United could certainly lose to Real Madrid. So it's not over. I felt there was more in this game for Manchester City because of Real Madrid's mediocrity.
I can also tell you, from the Manchester City perspective, that early on in the game, okay, you go with this formation and whatever is it that you were trying to achieve if you're Pep Guardiola, you were actually creating the opportunities because Real Madrid wasn't creating much of anything. And the feeling then became, is this another performance where Manchester City is creating chances, not taking advantage of the opportunities? You make a mistake in the back. Now Real Madrid scores a goal and you're thinking to yourself, well, it's what we have seen from Manchester City over the last month. The turnaround, the attitude, the character, the personality of Manchester City, and really and truly the level of player of Manchester City showed up towards the end of that match and really showcased the difference between Manchester City and Real Madrid. You wanted an overview? I'll give you an overview. Manchester City is simply better than Real Madrid right now. There is no question about it. There's no doubt about it. The best version of Manchester City is much better than the best version of Real Madrid.
But Real Madrid were nowhere near that best version today.
No, but even their best is not... and that's what I was saying in the last couple of days. and they almost shot themselves in the foot with a mistake. But it was going to come down to what City did defensively with the basic errors that was going to be the conductor for how the game panned out for them. They weren't great in the middle of the park. I suppose young Vinicius was arguably the best player. It was I would say it was a very pedestrian performance. They got a little bit of a lift, or a lot of a lift, just after the goal when Fernandinho had to make a couple of blocks. But apart from that, City were toying with them, and I thought they could have done it a little bit more. Again, beware the wounded animal, right? For those that are going, well, City have just outplayed them. For the reasons that I mentioned earlier with City at home, they've shot themselves in the foot before, so they can't take this lightly. The one thing that I saw that was interesting at the end was a player that didn't play. I saw Aguero on the pitch at the end, and he actually looked quite happy. Now, some might say, well, of course he's happy, his team won. No. If you don't play inside, you're like, you don't want to play the biggest games. So I got to feel that because he never even got on the pitch, that Guardiola said to him, listen, barring a disaster, right, he's going to do a job for us, Jesus, running back and forward, up and down the flank, and you're going to be the man at home. It's the only thing I can think of. Otherwise, I don't think he'd have been on smiling and joking at the end of the game.
What did Real Madrid do wrong?
It's what they've been doing the whole year. This is not... When you watch Real Madrid play this whole year, this is the way they have played, in which sometimes they forfeit possession of the ball, sometimes they get behind on the ball, they have difficulties creating opportunities, they have difficulties creating chances.
This is their terrible Champions League record, by the way. Last 6 home matches, they've only won 1 of them.
Well, and what I can tell you is that when you have seen over the last 10 days, over the last couple of weeks, what Real Madrid has become, and it's a team that struggles to create opportunities, but the difference between now and what it was early on in the season is that they were keeping goals from happening against them. That defensively there was a structure, that defensively there was discipline, that there were no mistakes. Today there were mistakes. Today there was very little structure whenever Manchester City started moving the ball a little bit quicker and with a little bit of sharpness. Real Madrid has difficulties in 1v1 situations outside of Vinicius, who in that team takes somebody on, who breaks somebody down. And there were moments, even when Vinicius broke somebody down, that he got his head up and he's looking, who am I playing the ball to? So they get to a place on the field in the final third in which they get there easily through their possession, and then they have nothing else.
Is there an argument to say that City's tactics did that to them even more in that first half?
You can make that argument, but that argument will just play to and pander to whatever Pep Guardiola is trying to sell you. I can tell you that Real Madrid has looked like that against Levante. They have looked like that against Celta de Vigo. They have looked like that against other teams. And they starting allowing goals in the Copa del Rey match against Real Sociedad, and it hasn't stopped. Every time after they have played that match, they've been vulnerable. And today, City showed how vulnerable they could be.
One of the problems for them, I felt coming into this game, and I feel it's an issue for them long term, and it's affecting Barcelona as well. They're trying to make change. Is the players getting older in the middle of the park? I know young Valverde was in there. He was in there for a reason.
Yeah.
Well, several reasons. One, he's a very good young player, but 2, he can get about the park. We've seen the issue with Busquets and Rakitic at Barcelona. We're seeing it with Kroos on the bench for that reason, because he's a very good footballer. But that's one of the reasons on the bench. Casemiro and Modric just can't get about the field like they used to. And when you have the Rodris and the Gundomans and the Bruynes floating about and the Bernardo Silvas and all these guys who can get to the second balls. So when you do get possession and it's dropping in the middle of the park, when they get there first, you're on the front foot again. And you're getting it into your strikers, you're getting it wide. And as a midfielder, when you're not picking those balls up, you're continually in a defensive situation. And that's kind of where Real Madrid are at the moment, because they're not... That 3 ball that I mentioned before Valverde was involved, Kroos, Isco, Kroos, Modric and Casemiro, when they were picking up the 3 Champions League titles, were bossing almost every game. They can't do that anymore, and that puts pressure on the rest of the team.
That old number 7 was pretty good
Well,
as well.
he was good.
It shows, doesn't it?
And that's what I wanted to get to, is that right now, when you're playing Real Madrid, and you're a good team, like Manchester City is a good team, there is no threat going the other way. You're not thinking, when you're in possession of the ball, hey, we better not lose the ball here because this guy can punish us over there. You're not thinking that way. They're not threatening you. And here's the other thing. You talked about the tactics of Guardiola, and maybe that had something to do with the failures of Real Madrid today. If I'm Real Madrid and I'm thinking, Gabriel Jesus is defending over here, Riyad Mahrez is defending over there. If I really have truly talented, attacking players, guys that can truly threaten, I'm going after Gabriel Jesus. I'm going after Riyad Mahrez.
So why didn't Zidane instigate that when we all saw it?
Because I think he does fear what happens when he commits number forward. Because he has seen what can happen when you say, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to take a risk. They have been at their best this season, and they're most efficient, as they're most effective when they've been conservative. And that's not quite the personality of Real Madrid.